Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to another chapter review. Today we are going to be doing chapter 1068, A Genius's Dream. But before we do that, I want to introduce the slightly different layout that we have here today. Not hugely different from the last videos, as you may imagine, or as you may have seen. It's pretty much exactly the same, just slightly swapped around. This board over here is slightly more prominent now because I actually want to keep some things pinned here for us to remember. So at the end of this video, I'm going to be talking about a huge event which is going to be coming up, which is a bit of a theory because that's what we do here now. Well, that's what we're leaning towards now, I suppose. And yes, so this is going to remind us of the things that we're going to be talking about soon and some plot threads that we kind of have a little bit unresolved. So for now, we have this one, which is chapter 1111 rather. So what we're going to do is we're going to, and I guess green works quite well because it's Zoro related, we're going to pin this right here without knocking anything over, hopefully. This is going to be Zoro's huge chapter in all likelihood. We're going to talk about this more at the end of the video, but 1111 is Zoro's bounty, his birthday. It's really important to him, so let's see what's going to happen then. But for now, on to the chapter review. So I mentioned in my previous review that didn't come out, because I'll probably have to double pack these two. It's been a crazy week for me. That Judge and Caesar are most likely going to be just fine and working together by the time we see them again. We are seeing them again and they're not quite working together, but I'm sure they will. I mean, it's just the way that these two mad scientists coming together will be. Mad scientist. I can see why you did that now, Oda. You can't really say mad scientist without saying mad scientist. That's very clever. I didn't really get that before. Anyway, they are still fighting with each other. It's a little bit strange. I didn't think they'd be so evenly matched. You know, Caesar Clown and Judge Vinsmoke Judge. I wouldn't think that they're on the same level, but it's probably more of a friendly or rather unfriendly rivalry between them, the same way that Luffy can be beaten rather by Nami, and Sanji actually has a chance against Zoro. It's only for comedy purposes, of course. So when I read the chapter recently, I completely missed a very important aspect, which is at the top. They are both remembering the same thing. They are both remembering Vegapunk, which is really interesting. I mean, obviously they would, but that's what they're first reminded of when they see each other again. So the cover stories, the cover chapters are tying in very nicely to the current Egghead Island arc, much more than I kind of thought they would, but I guess I should have seen that coming. But it's also very interesting that Caesar and Judge look so weirdly different as the silhouettes in the back of this memory. Obviously they're quite a bit younger, but I don't know, there's some very strange looking silhouettes there. So that leads me to believe we're going to get more into Mads, and we're gonna get a flashback, probably from Vegapunk's perspective, about what these guys actually look like, and more as to what happened in the Mads science group. So let's get into the chapter for real now. Things in these chapters are ramping up so much quicker than I thought they would. We have CP0 trying to infiltrate Egghead, and we have Luffy running around with Vegapunk, and huge exposition being given out, but it's now about time that some action happens, and I thought we'd have a lot more time in this arc with Luffy running this way and Rob Lucci trying to chase him that way, or them not really knowing about each other on the island until a certain point. Well, that certain point is now. We seem to have jumped all of that pretense and all of that running around, and we are just getting straight into the action. So it's very interesting here that Vegapunk's clones, his satellites, seem to be handling the island pretty well, but they don't really have quite a centralized ideal on things, so a lot of things seem to slip through the cracks. Even if one gives an order or one believes something, it doesn't necessarily mean that the others are going to follow it or even believe the same thing. Very evident by how Lilith is counter to Pythagoras and Edison and Shaka's plans entirely. I don't know about Edison, but certainly against Pythagoras and Shaka, Lilith just kind of does things. They clearly don't act as one unified team. Vegapunk has really split himself into different people here. They're still Vegapunk, but they are distinctly different people. Vegapunk Pythagoras does not seem very keen to let CP0 into the island, which, I mean, obviously makes sense. Would you let Rob Lucci in if he came knocking? Probably not. Does Rob Lucci care? Also probably not. So they're just going to sneak in anyway, fully aware that their ship is going to be destroyed. But there's a very strange thing going on here where Rob Lucci is asking Vegapunk about the disappearance of the world government ships that have been coming here for the past 2 months. My initial reaction to this was the sea beasts are destroying them, and as Lilith said before, they can't really seem to take the primal nature out of the animal. But then surely Vegapunk would just mention that, oh, sorry, yeah, the sea beasts that you can see right there obviously took them out. We're working on that. But no, that wasn't the case. And there's something to be said for just hiding things from Lucci, especially because, you know, now he's a CPI just Zero member and you don't really want to be telling him all the shady things you've been doing. But maybe there's more to this. Maybe there is a deeper reason to it, but in all likelihood, it's just that the sea beasts keep destroying them and they keep salvaging the wreckage. So that's going to be my assumption for now, but we'll see if that goes anywhere. Replicate devil fruit abilities. So a few chapters ago, we saw S-Shark. We saw Seraphim Jinbe's ability to use the Swim fruit. And that is pretty insane because we didn't know if Senor Pink had died and the fruit had been transferred over to Seraphim Kuma, or if Vegapunk could actually just replicate Paramecia abilities. And at that time, I decided to go with the belief that he can just replicate those devil fruit abilities because it's Vegapunk. He understands the lineage factor and he understands devil fruits. He could replicate Kizaru's lasers into all the Pacifista, so why not Paramecia abilities? And indeed, why not Paramecia abilities? Because now we see that S-Bear, the Kuma Seraphim, also has the Pawpaw fruit, which is crazy because Kuma also still has the Pawpaw fruit, meaning the Vegapunk can replicate devil fruit abilities, and not just Logia abilities like fire or light that are naturally occurring things. He can replicate their very specific abilities like swimming through the ground or having pads that deflect everything, which is insane, but it's really cool to get the confirmation of that here. But this opens so many new possibilities for what devil fruit abilities the other Seraphim could have. I still think that there's a distinction between the Seraphim that do have devil fruits and don't in terms of their eyes, because the Mihawk Seraphim, S-Hawk, or Shawk I suppose, but S-Hawk is way better, has different eyes from S-Snake, being Boa Hancock's Seraphim. So I guess I'm just going to have to check the eyes, but I think the star-shaped eyes are implanted devil fruit abilities. But then what does Mihawk's eye pattern mean? Because S-Hawk has that as well. One thing that we need to brace ourselves for now is Kuma arriving on Egghead. He is imminent, and it depends on how far away he really is, because he uses his Nikyu no Mi abilities to paw pad himself over to Egghead Island, which is in the New World. It's after Wano, absolutely in the New World. But he sends himself from the Kamabaka Kingdom, which is in the Grand Line, as stated in this chapter. So he's sending himself from the Grand Line all the way over to the New World, which isn't the hugest difference. It's really not the biggest. But I find it very strange that the last time we saw this ability, it takes a certain amount of time to pop over a particular distance, I believe. I think it was 3 days and 3 nights you're flying in the air to land wherever you're going. That is plainly untrue in this chapter, though, because shorter distances take shorter amounts of time. The S-Bear uses his Nikyu no Mi abilities to pop CP0 agents and a few of the other government scrubs on their ship and himself onto the island very, very quickly. No 3 days, 3 nights to travel that short distance. But here, Kuma is also transporting himself, and I can only assume, I'm sure, that he is going to Egghead Island, where Bonnie is, where the other Kuma is, where Vegapunk is, where the Straw Hats are. Kuma is now going to involve himself in this arc, and that is huge, especially because I don't know if you remember the Gorawase. I think it's Gorawase, which is the practice of finding different puns or different meanings, I suppose, in Japanese numbers, kind of like how certain chapters have their, if you spell out the letters, it can have a very good meaning towards the chapter, and Oda likes to hide a lot of things in here. One of the very popular thoughts at the outset of a couple of other arcs, I can't remember where it was, but at the outset of a particular arc, somebody noticed something very interesting in that from 1 to 10, we have all of the names of the devil fruits using Gorawase in that pattern. So we have Gomu, We have the Hito Hito no Mi, which I'm not sure which that one links up to, but I guess now we have two of those, so it kind of throws it a bit out. But we have the Hana Hana no Mi, which would be 8 and 7, I suppose. Anyway, I'll put them up here because I'll have to give it some thought. But the one that we were missing, this is the important bit, the one that we were missing from this Gorawase pattern was Ni and Q. Ni Q no Mi, which would be Bartholomew Kuma's ability. So a lot of people thought that Kuma would join the crew because of this Gorawase pattern. And what I think we're really getting to here is, how is this Gorawase pattern going to come to fruition now in Egghead? Because this is definitely the time. We have all of the crew members here, as well as Bartholomew Kuma, for the first time since Shabodi. So why does Kuma play such a particularly important role in the Straw Hat Pirates? First of all, separating them to the 2-year time skip locations, and now coming all back together in the new world on Vegapunk's Egghead Island. So something really big is about to happen here. So let's put another note up. Stay with me. Hold on, this will only take a second. Okay, there we go, that's up. I like this new board system. It's going to be very helpful for keeping track of things that I'm going to forget over the 2-week break, when there is a 2-week break. So, right, now, back to the One Piece. In this chapter, Vegapunk is saying a lot of really important things in one go, and I feel just like Luffy, where I am not understanding it at all. But I'm starting to kind of put the pieces together here. So Vegapunk's request to leave the island is starting to make a lot more sense, but why? Luffy doesn't really care. He accepts him because he's got a weird head, and that's just Luffy for you. But anyone else would take Vegapunk. I mean, Orochi from Wano wanted Vegapunk. Vegapunk is an incredibly useful asset to anyone in the world. Luffy just thinks he looks cool with an apple head. So anyway, Vegapunk wants to leave the island in search of this great fuel source. Where this great fuel source is, I have no idea. In my mind, the best place to figure out where it is on Egghead Island, where the giant robot is that was fueled by it. But there is something missing from Vegapunk's kind of collection here, that he needs to go somewhere else with Luffy to attain this energy. And this is his dream. The dream of the genius is to supply power to the whole world to stop global conflict about energy resources, which this chapter just hit really close to like the real world. There's a lot of really impactful and important lessons about our society and what we fight over here. And it's a very noble dream for him to want to eradicate war of that kind. It is very cool. Does this mean Vegapunk is guaranteed to get off this island on Luffy's ship? No, we spent like 100 chapters talking about, okay, well, Yamato was only introduced much later in Onigashima, but in Wano, we were talking about Yamato joining for a long time, and then she just didn't join. So take it with a bit of a grain of salt whether, you know, this will actually come to fruition or not, but yeah, let's hold out hope that this wacky scientist can come with on the ship. Would kind of make it feel like both Robin and Frankie are completely unnecessary, though, because he has all of the knowledge from the Oharans and, you know, can draw a lot of conclusions that Robin has come to, because she's also an Oharan scholar. But also Frankie. If Frankie's just trying to imitate or mimic or be inspired by Vegapunk's technology, surely it would be a bit redundant to get actual Vegapunk on the crew, because then, you know, 2 of the 9 commanders are just kind of taken up by one even more famous and dangerous scientist. So that is kind of strange. Also, I wonder if Luffy's 163 on his jacket in this conversation has anything to do with that. Ich, Rook, or Ha, and, oh no, Ha is 8. Anyway, Ich Rook San, Ichirok San. Nothing there out of the blue for me, but listen, I don't speak Japanese too fluently, so we'll come back to it. But Vegapunk says a lot of important things here, and he wants to leave the island in search of this great energy, this source of energy. There's energy all around us, we just need to harness it. And this, I guarantee you, is going to link back into Devil Fruit. Somehow, this goal and the Ancient Kingdom and energy and the capturing of the soul, this is Pythagoras' thing from our world, where he was talking about the soul living on in the body or being transferred, which is probably going to be kind of important to Vegapunk, since there's Vegapunk 04 Pythagoras. But something very, very interesting here happens. He says, after a dear friend of mine died, I found myself diving ever deep into the abyss to further his will. Who is this very important friend that died? Is it Kuma? Does Kuma care about the energy? Does the Sorbet Kingdom actually have the key to the whole energy crisis thing? Do we have to go to the Sorbet Kingdom now? What is the importance here? Bonnie seems to be very relevant. Kuma is on his way. I guess Kuma was a dear friend of Vegapunk. There are so many things going on here, but who is this friend and what is their connection to this energy source that Vegapunk cannot figure out? So I don't know if Vegapunk's going to leave on this Thousand Sunny, but I really hope so, because there's a lot of really good real estate for some amazing story and kind of comedy elements going on with Vegapunk on the cruise. It's very cool to see CP0 arriving and kind of interacting here, especially because we haven't seen Kaku and Lucci and of course Hattori in a very, very long time. I mean, we saw them at Reverie and a few bits in between, and even a few chapters ago, but really kind of interacting with each other and being the focus of a chapter instead of a teaser at the end. It's quite cool. But Stussy just kind of being really not a team player here and letting Kaku fly up into the research stratum and get shot down by a laser beam. It was quite funny how they kind of have that, not rivalry, but they don't seem to get along very well. But why does Khalifa... No, not Khalifa. This is not Khalifa. I know there's the CP9 agent Khalifa and there's the CP0 agent Stussy, unless they're actually the same person. But no, this is Stussy, who has definitely the weirdest mask out of the three of them. Why does she know so much about this island? Has she been to Egghead Island before? Did she work here before? Is she related to someone here? Why does she know so much particular information about this, even to the point of the frontier dome of the Research Stratum's defense? And she knows exactly where it is and what it does. Why does she know that? Why would she know that and not Kaku and Lucci? So she's definitely been here before. Vegapunk Shaka then releases the Seraphim to deal with this problem, and I'm so glad the Seraphim are on our side, because I kind of thought the Straw Hats would be infiltrating, some of the Vegapunks would be on their side, some of them would be not. They seem to be categorically on the side of the Straw Hats, though, at least for the most part. I thought the Straw Hats would have to fight a lot more of the Seraphim and just kind of be in that state in this arc. But we see Vegapunk unleashing the Seraphim here, and we get a whole bunch of new names for them, which is cool, which is what I mentioned before. The S-Shark, the S-Hawk, the S-Snake, they are very cool. S-Bear. And I wasn't really sure about this whole S-Shark thing before. I definitely remember Tekken making a video talking about S-Shark, and I kind of remember going, oh yeah, S-Shark. No, I think that was more of a stuttering like a shark. Like they were just more surprised and they were referring to the Jinbei Seraphim. But no, it does seem that it's S-Shark, S-Bear, which makes a lot of sense. Seraphim Bear, Seraphim Shark, Seraphim Hawk. Like that makes a lot of sense. But I didn't really concretely believe that at the time. But here's confirmation on that. And then another name we haven't seen in a long time that we all knew was coming is Sentomaru. Sentomaru, whom we haven't seen since Marineford and the Shabodi Archipelago. We saw him at Marineford, I'm sure, so that would have been the last time we saw him. Big dude with the axe who has the world's strongest defense. I wonder how Oda's going to play that with this whole world's strongest defense, since we have the new forms of Haki, we have Kaido, we have all of these huge things happening. I wonder if he still has the world's strongest defense. My money's on no, but I guess we're going to find out, because he's now back in the story. At the end of the chapter, we have a fight scene finally breaking out with Atlas and the CP0 agents, because Atlas is raring to go. The only person who's allowed to be rampaging around here is me. So she goes in and she attacks CP0, and it really doesn't go super well, as Shaka expected. Lucci just goes full-on hybrid form and Roku Ogans her right in the face. He's really not holding back. That is the strongest move we ever saw him use. And Roku Ogan is something that you only unlock once you have mastered all of the other Rokushiki powers. So Rokushiki is 6 techniques. Let's actually go through them now. We have Tekai, which is the hardening one. We have Shigan, which is the finger pistol thing. But actually like really deadly. Kamie, which is the dodging one. Geppo, which is the jumping one. Soru, which is the dodging really fast one like Luffy uses. And one more that I usually forget about, which will be on the screen now because that's, memory. But once you get all of these 6 styles together and you master them, remember master them, because before Kaku and Jabra and the other CP9 members couldn't use Rokuogan because they were masters of a particular style of Rokushiki, but they didn't reach the genius Rob Lucci's level of being able to master all of them, because once you do, you have access to the Rokuogan, the 6 King pistol, which is really strong. It literally almost took Luffy down back in Enies Lobby, so really good. But that's his opening move here, straight into a hybrid form and into his strongest technique that we knew from before. So how much stronger has Lucci gotten since pre-time skip? Probably a lot. It's hard to gauge here because we don't really know the strength of Vegapunk Atlas. We assume quite strong. She's really big and she's designed by Vegapunk. So you would think that she's better at combat than any of the other Vegapunks, which is probably true. Doesn't mean she measures up to Rob Lucci in his hybrid form with Rokushiki. So, yeah, that was pretty intense. And Atlas is surviving but not looking too good. So, yeah, crossing fingers that Atlas doesn't die here. But it's not looking great. And right at the end of the chapter, Luffy's running away, very excited to get to the top and go on another adventure. He's already ready to leave this island for some reason. I guess he got here, found a weird apple-headed dude, and he's like, well, that's all I needed. And he's ready to peace out for some reason. And Rob Lucci sees him, and he sees Rob Lucci, and neither of them are particularly jazzed about this. They are both shocked. And so was I. I really didn't think we'd be getting Lucci and Luffy's meeting so soon in this arc. I really thought they'd be running around the island, more things would happen. Maybe the Sanji, Nami, Robin, Usopp, Frankie, that whole group would, run into them first or be aware of them first, and Luffy would have the circuitous route through the island until he gets there at the end, kind of like he does in every arc where, he gets there and then he gets knocked back and then he has to find another route all the way there. So, no, that's not what we're doing. It's literally Lucci versus Luffy right here. And I can't really see this going any other way than Luffy just having to wipe the floor with Lucci. I don't think this is going to be a really long arc. Either this is the point where we now have to run away from the main antagonist and a whole bunch of stuff has to happen for it to be a better time for them to come together and Luffy to beat them at the end of the arc, because it's like big and theatrical and that's how One Piece goes. Or it's going to be a very short arc, and this is either the prelude to their fight or the beginning of their actual fight, which will just not be very big. Vegapunk's out the way, Chopper is there for support, Jinbei is there for support, so somebody can look after Bonnie, the other can help Luffy fight, which would be very convenient for some reason, or Luffy's just going to beat him. I mean, he has access to Gear 5 now, he's aware of Gear 5, he's got Gear 4th, he's got Advanced Armament Haki, Advanced Conqueror's Haki. Like, Luffy is ridiculously strong at this point. I don't think he'd have much trouble with Lucci, but that's what we're getting up to now. And I'm so excited for it because it's been such a long time since we've seen these guys fight, and it was a really good fight before. So let's see how the rematch goes. Okay, so now that we're at the end of the chapter, I just want to address a mini theory that is probably going to just be like a small thing that I do in my videos, is we'll do the big chapter review and then we'll do a mini theory at the end, just something to think about. So let's get into it. Today's topic will be chapter 1111. And for this, I actually have this. I don't know if any of you saw this at the back and were wondering what it is. But it's swords, because obviously it's swords. That's like all I do. But this is my kendo sword, or what we call a shinai. It's made of bamboo, not a real sword. I mean, is a real sword, but this is basically what Zoro was using when he started his swordsman journey way back in the beginning at East Blue. You would have seen him fight Kuina with a bunch of these. And now that I think about it, it's actually really gross, because as you can see, as you use it, it gets really dirty. And trust me, especially with my level of OCD, I like to keep things clean when I can, when I have the option. This, we don't really have the option. There is no cleaning of your Shinai handle. When it gets gross and unusable, you throw it away. If it's just gross, you just kind of use it. And one of the things that made me think about is when we first see Zoro challenge Kuina, he grabs like 4 of these things in each hand and then like a bunch in his mouth, and then he challenges her. And you know, since I started Kendo, a lot more of Zoro's characters become apparent to me, and I've enjoyed it a lot more, which is saying something, because I've always really enjoyed Zoro's character. But yeah, to pick up a whole bunch of, in the dojo I attend, we have a whole bunch of these just kind of, you know, at the back for people that don't have, who want to try, or if yours breaks while you're in training and you just need another one to train with, they're there. But they're kind of a little bit old and gross and have been used by a lot of people. So Zoro just grabbed like 4 random Shinai and put them in his mouth when he was a kid. And that's really, really gross. But the reason that I wanted this here is because it's a very stark difference between where you are at the beginning of your Kendo and where you are later in life. And Kendo and swordsmanship are somewhat different. They're not exactly the same, particularly in One Piece. You know, One Piece swordsmanship is not real life swordsmanship. Trust me, these things are not meant for the mouth, particularly real swords that are made of metal. Not a good idea. So it's just very cool to me that Zoro started this journey pretty much where I am now, where you start out with a sword and you have no idea what you're doing. You just kind of have to learn everything. To where he is now, where he's really considered to be one of the best swordsmen in the whole world, with a bounty of 1.111 billion berries, which is insane. He's really up there. But how close is he to the top spot? How close is he to Mihawk? Now, the reason that I wanted to bring all of this up is because chapter 1111 is coming out very, very soon. Why is it important that chapter 1111 is coming out very soon? Well, because that's Zoro's number, and it has now been double down confirmed that that is Zoro's number, because there's a lot of interesting things to do with Zoro. His birthday is 11th of November, as we all know. We did a little shout out to him a few weeks ago because it was Zoro's birthday, and that would be 1111, 1111, which is also Zoro's bounty. 1111, you know, 1,111,000,000. So he's got the 1111 in his bounty. It's his birthday. November is also known as Frost Moon or Shimotsuki, which would be Shimotsuki Ryuma, Shimotsuki Yasuie, Shimotsuki Ushimaru, Shimotsuki Zoro most likely, you know, Shimotsuki Kozaburo, all connected together, which is also why Zoro's story is so good if you really delve into the implied things and the things that Oda has confirmed. So, all of those kind of things leading together, that Zoro is a very important character in the story, connects very strongly with Shimotsuki and, you know, November, and all of those kinds of characters, which is also the name of this channel, Shimotsuki Kajiya, which would be Frost Moon Forge, technically, or November Forge, because swords and blacksmithing and Zoro, essentially, and all the other Shimotsuki members. So, a lot of random thoughts going out there, but they all kind of coalesce to the one point. Oda's use of numbers to make interesting points in the story and interesting connections. So, in this one particular chapter, it's not really going to be Gorowase. It's not going to be the sounding out of them like Nikyu, Nikyu no Mi, anything like that. It's just that the chapter 1111 has to be a Zoro chapter, right? Like, it really has to be. And my question here is Zoro ready to take on Mihawk 43 chapters from now? We've been going for 25 years. We've been going a long, long way, a very long journey to get to the point where we are. But is Zoro ready to take on Mihawk? My theory is that something substantial is going to happen at chapter 1111, but what is it going to be? Are we going to see the return of Kuina? Is Zoro going to break another sword, or get another sword, or do both? Or is he finally going to be ready to forge his black blade? Who knows what it's actually going to be? Maybe we'll notice a few more things along the way. 43 chapters is nothing to sneeze at. That's almost half of Dressrosa. But when you think about it, this chapter, or rather this arc, has been going for about 13 chapters or so for now. And in another 47, we'd be at 60. 60? Math, whatever. Would Egghead Island arc be more than half of the length of Dressrosa, or is this going to be a much shorter arc? So do we have the time to wrap up everything at Egghead and still challenge the world's greatest swordsman. So just a little bit of food for thought. I like to put things up here so that they can kind of stew in our brains for a little while before we do the next chapter review, and also so we remember to look at them and theorize on them as we go. So yeah, that is 1068 for today. We are 43 chapters away from 1111, which is probably going to be my favorite chapter of all of them, at least for now. So yeah, we've got a little while until we reach there, so we'll probably make a couple more videos more in line with this kind of thought as we get more evidence for or against. But yeah, that'll be my chapter review for today. Thanks for watching. And I'm going to link a Discord in the bottom, down there somewhere, that you're more than welcome to join if you want to chat. You're more than welcome to throw some advice in there, or just comment or talk about some interesting things in One Piece, or maybe play some video games together. You know, Discord is used for many things. So if you do want to join the community, or start joining the community, or start a community, then jump down there and I'll see you online. Anyway, have a wonderful time, and I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.